Welcome back to another episode of the Sales Gravy Podcast. With me today is Sarah Browner, who is a Senior Global Sales Enablement Manager with Adobe. And we're going to be focusing on learning, in particular, what you are doing to invest in yourself and take advantage of all the learning opportunities around you. Before we get started, I want you to go check out Sales Gravy University. There is a reason why companies and individual salespeople from all around the globe use Sales Gravy University to up their skills. There are more courses from some of the masters of sales training. It's an incredible library of content, and it's easy to tap into. And right now, you can get your very first course for free at learn.salesgravy.com by using the code FREECOURSE. So get your very first course for free at learn.salesgravy.com. That's learn.salesgravy.com. Sarah, welcome to the Sales Gravy Podcast. First of all, I love Adobe. Every day of my life, I'm immersed in Adobe. So whether it's Illustrator or Audition, which we'll be editing this podcast on, and Premiere, which we'll be doing the video portion of this podcast on, Adobe is part of my life. So I feel like it's sort of like, I don't know, it's like going to Disneyland to be able to spend some time with someone who works for one of my favorite companies. And what I want you to maybe start off with is, why do you have a passion for sales enablement, and especially learning and training, and maybe tell us a little bit about what you do in your role in particular to help keep Adobe's sales force strong.
Okay. Again, my name is Sarah, and in my role, I am responsible for bringing enablement, or curating enablement for over 2,000 individual contributing sales reps globally. And that is the primary function of my job, is either finding or creating the information that they need to do their jobs better.
And Adobe invests a lot of money.
Yes.
In sales enablement and sales training. Why?
Because that's the only way to keep getting better and keep getting more sales. Is you've got to have the basics, you've got to advance your skills, and if you stop learning, then what is even the point?
Right. So, I think you said earlier in the pre-show that you stop learning, you stop growing.
Yep. You
and I were talking also earlier off camera that one of the frustrating things for people in your role, and I think for sales enablement leaders everywhere, is that there are some salespeople who just say, I don't need to learn anymore. I've got it all, I know it all. Why is that a dangerous thing for a salesperson to think that they've already learned everything, there's nothing else for them?
Especially these days, in as quickly as technology is moving, to have the audacity to say that you know everything all the time is unfortunate. It's things change all the time. You've got to have the latest and greatest, and there's new techniques that come up, and why you wouldn't want the latest and greatest, I could not begin to understand.
One of the things that always just drives me crazy is, like, I'll see someone, they'll like we were talking about Anthony Iannarino, my good friend, and y'all like to use his training, but he'll put out a new book, and I'll go on and take a look at his reviews, or I'm writing a review, and there'll be somebody who'll come along and go, well, nothing new here. And I'm thinking, I've been selling for like 30 years, and I just read this book, and I found 5-6 things in here that were really intriguing and made me think, and there's somebody who says nothing new here. And that mentality, to me, is just, it's such a I don't know, a cynical way of looking at the world. There's nothing new here. And what I always say to people who say that to me is, look, there's nothing new anywhere. Almost everything that you're learning, everything that's being brought to you, somebody already thought of. What we're doing is we're reconfiguring things. We have different circumstances, different context, where you've got to apply these fundamental, basic essentials of how we interact with people, from soft skills to how we interact with our products, and the products and services and software does change, and you have to learn those things. But it's all about the ability to, for me, it's I read and I think differently. I read and I converse differently. I read and I interact with the world differently. And I guess the best way I could do it, I feel sad for people who look at the world and say, nothing new here.
Yeah, even if I attend an hour-long course and I get one thing out of it, that's worth it for me, because it gives me a different perspective. It gives me something that I can take to other people to teach them. There is no unused learning. in my opinion.
That's a really good point. Like, there is no unused learning. There is nothing that you can't learn from. And even, even sometimes, like I'll go to conferences and I'll go to a breakout and it's just awful. But in that moment, just as a facilitator, I learned those are things that you don't want to do because that caused people to walk out of the room. So make sure you don't repeat that.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So how do you advise people? Like, what's your formula for building an open mindset? So versus a closed mindset, there's nothing I can learn here. An open mindset that says everything's an opportunity to learn something, and you have to go look for it. How do you help people make that shift?
It's definitely a work in progress. A lot of it is meeting them where they are. It's giving them the information in a form that they need, whether it's a podcast, whether it's a book, whether it's live in person. So that's a lot of it is meeting them where they are and where they want to learn.
And that's one of the things I think you do so well at Adobe is that you've brought to them all of these different ways, and it's an impressive aspect of Adobe University, which you've been spending your life on
Yep.
building out, and the way that you're building it, almost like a university, where you can come in and subscribe to a class. You can enroll in
Yep,
a particular
absolutely.
time.
Yep.
But it is that you're stacking and blending training in different ways. So no matter how you want to consume it, there's something for you. And I started this off with a promo for Sales Gravy University, but just this week we started practicing with these quick tips, which are 5 minutes or less, really hard-hitting lessons, and we're getting a lot of engagement. But there's somebody's going to say, I really want something longer form. There's other people that say, could you go even shorter? But I think that is important. But that also says to the individual, you have to seek out opportunities to learn and give feedback.
Absolutely.
I really like this, because if people don't tell you, if the salespeople in the organization don't say, this is working for me, you won't know.
And yeah, I've actually started as part of university a sales advisory board that people can sign up for and come and tell me what they thought. And we had one this last quarter, and yeah, it was yay podcast, no articles. So we'll take it with a grain of salt. But yeah. It's nice getting the feedback and knowing that you actually are meeting them where they want to learn.
And when we give feedback, and so if as you're listening to this podcast, if you're a salesperson and you work in a company that's investing in you like Adobe does, one of the things that I find very helpful for me as a learning professional trying to help people is when you tell me what you like rather than tell me what you don't like.
Yeah.
You tell me what you don't like, I have a really hard time
I have buckets
catching
of
that,
what you don't
right?
like.
But if you tell me what you like, then I can give you more of that.
Mm-hmm.
And if I've got someone saying, I really like these articles, they're great, and I get someone I really like podcasts, and I know that there's some people that really want this, let's invest in that. And there's some people who really want the podcast, and maybe there's ways of combining the two things. Maybe you can have an article split up by a video, but tell us what you like.
Mm-hmm.
So my pitch to people from the very beginning, if you read my very first book, Power Principles, is your company's probably providing you with some training. Go take advantage of it.
Absolutely.
So I want to give you an opportunity to pitch that, because I know how much money that you spend on this, because we've talked about it. I know that the investment both in time and emotion, because this is something that's really important to you particularly, it's got to hurt your feelings when people don't take the training that you give them. Like, we're not just talking about I have a job, like it hurts. Talk about that.
It is. It's depressing. And, we've had live sessions before where we've had one person or no people even show up after 10 people committed to coming. And yeah, it does. It 100% hurts my feelings. And not just because of the money, but because, the live opportunities, especially because they are workshop format, you're not going to get anything if you watch the recording. It's not the point of it. The point is to come and learn from your coworkers. It is to share ideas. It is to simply expand the way you think, and that is not possible if you're not there.
So I want to, and I think this you've got to invest in it matters, because I want you to think about it like this. We've got Sales Gravy University. We've got 30,000 users on Sales Gravy University. Most of those users who come in, buy a subscription, pay for a course, they're working for small companies. They typically don't have the money that like an Adobe does to invest in it, and they're spending their own money in order to get educated, because they believe in education, they believe in training. If you work for a big company, and I came out of a big company too, so I worked for a big old company, we provided all kinds of training, and people wouldn't go, they wouldn't show up, I don't want to take it. If you work for a big company that is paying for the training, like, you don't have to pay a cent. It's free. It's like It's like, down the road from here, the University of Georgia opened its doors and says everybody can get a free education, and then you choose not to. That to me is the most self-destructive behavior possible. It's free. Go take it.
Yeah, I mean, it's for you. Why you wouldn't? I mean, let's think you were going to a new employer and they'd be like, so how many, what have you done to advance your career? Oh, nothing, because I haven't bothered.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
how can you justify that to yourself, especially in sales? Like, if you are not getting better, you're dying. So why you wouldn't make the effort to improve yourself and therefore your own personal bottom line seems a waste of time and effort for everybody.
Invest in yourself, because sales skills, especially soft skills, are perishable. So the things that the art of selling, doing discovery, interacting with people, asking questions, dealing with rejection, dealing with objections, sales strategy, moving the chess pieces around on the board, all of that is perishable. Over time, you adopt bad habits. Over time, you change things just a little bit, and what most training does is get you back to those basics. If you're working for a company like Adobe, where you're innovative and the software's changing and you're adding new products, if you don't know those products top to bottom, how are you going to be able to sit down in front of your customer, ask them great questions, uncover what's important to them, and build value bridges from your solution to their desired outcomes if you don't know the product? If you're just walking around without the knowledge and the learning. There is nothing more important, in my opinion, to enabling sales performance than learning.
Absolutely.
Than what you are doing to invest in yourself. But you can do everything that impossible at Adobe to get the learning in front of them. But if you don't go take it, nobody can help you.
Absolutely. And even kind of to piggyback on that is, even if you know the product top, backwards, and sideways, if you don't know the right way to approach people with that information, if you don't know how to make it, to speak to the value of it, then again, your knowledge is once again wasted, because you don't know how to do what you need to do to get the information to other people, which is what your job is.
A quick change of subjects. As a sales enablement professional, I'm curious about this. What are the biggest trends that you see going forward, specifically in sales enablement as a discipline?
Ooh, that's a good question. It's just got to be innovation. The people are tired of looking at computers, sitting in front of Teams meetings all day. They miss people, and I think we all miss people at this point. So I think that's where you and I were talking about VR earlier, and I feel like that is probably the best solution that's going to be possible, is the perfect hybrid of kind of in-person and not, since, as we also discussed, people don't want to pay for travel anymore now that they've enjoyed the couple of years without having to pay for it. So
yeah, I'm really I'm bullish on VR. I still think we're probably 5 years out, and it may be even a little bit further. But in the last chapter of my book, Virtual Training, the last chapter is Ready Learner 1. So I think that the technology's there. It's getting better every day. It's super cool, and AI is going to make it even better, because AI is going to help us create these virtual reality learning environments that are just insanely interactive. But it is the very best communication that we can do as human beings versus being in person. So if we can't be in person, it's as 3D as it gets. It feels really good and really real. Like, even we have our own boardroom, so that we can, we have people all over the place. We put our headsets on, we can walk into the room and all sit down at the table, and
it changes the game.
It is a total game changer, and it's really, I was telling you earlier, it's like Minority Report in the room itself. But I just don't know how. I'm not quite sure from a technology standpoint how quickly we're going to be able to get people to adopt it, because it really is it's a strange thing for people to put a headset on and jump into a meeting. But you even think about, like, with sales managers who have remote sales teams, so they've got someone in one country, another country, and they're doing these flat 2D meetings on Teams or on Zoom. By putting the headsets on, suddenly everybody's there together. And AR, which is a situation where everybody would be in your space. Like, everybody put their headsets on and you'd be sitting in here and they would all be in the room with you. That also has potentials as well. So I know Adobe's probably doing some really cool stuff here that you can't talk about. I get it. Got to keep the secrets, but I think that is the future for how we're going to be interacting when we can't be together.
Absolutely. And yeah, I think that and micro-learning is 100% where we're going. We've got to, again, meet people where they are, get it short, sweet, out the door.
Very good. So if I always ask people this because I think it's cool, but if someone is out there and they're listening to this and they're thinking about, you know what, I got some mad sales skills and I think I want to change careers, why should they pick Adobe?
Because we're awesome. No, we've got great swag. No, I'm kidding. It's because of the structure. It's because, we have a huge department dedicated to nothing but improving our salespeople's sales skills. That is what we do all day, every day. Hundreds of people are involved in this. All we want to do is make it easier and you better at doing your job.
So you make people better so they can make more money.
That's the plan.
I like it. Awesome. Sarah, thank you so much for joining us on the Sales Gravy podcast. And if you want to up your sales skills, you can go to Sales Gravy University. Just go to learn.salesgravy.com. That's learn.salesgravy.com. And if you've never taken a course, you can take your very first course for free by using the coupon FREE COURSE. We'll see you next time on the Sales Gravy podcast.